What's up guys, it's Brandon with Extreme Daily Drivers, where we're always balling on a budget and wrenching in our garage. And I have a sweet beginner video for you guys today. If you're new to working on your car, this is the video for you. We're gonna go ahead and change the oil and the spark plugs in my Scion XB. Alright, so let's get started talking about what we're gonna need to do this job. First, we're gonna need some oil. So I got some Pennzoil, full synthetic. The weight is 5W30, which is the weight that's recommended for this engine according to the manufacturer. And I got myself a sweet Toyota, I'll give you that part number right there. This is a Toyota replacement oil filter. Can't go wrong with the OEM stuff. And as far as spark plugs go, I got some NGKs. Here's the part number for that if you guys are interested in getting this. I'll have a link in the description for all these items here, but this is pretty much gonna be a really straightforward video. So anyway, enough talking about it, let's get started. So the first step in changing your oil is to get your car up in the air. There are a number of ways you can do it. You could use jacks, you can use jack stands, or you can use ramps, which is what I always use. My dad made me these years ago, and they're pretty rudimentary, man, but there's no braking. There's nothing to go wrong with them. It's just a number of boards screwed together, stacked on top of each other. I actually got this idea out of, I believe it was Super Street magazine, like 10 years ago. You don't have to get your car that high in the air, just high enough for you to get underneath. Once you get the car up in the air and it's secure, you got e-brake on, you got the car in park or the car in gear. You should always put something behind the tires too, just in case it wants to roll at all. Once that's all done and the car's secure, now we can go ahead and remove the oil filler plug, or cap I should say. This car is still pretty warm, which is exactly kind of how you want to do it. You don't want the car to be smoking hot, but you want the car to be warm. It will allow the oil to drain out quicker. Alright, so now we're going to need a 14mm wrench. Excuse the garage here. So you guys know I got a Prelude. Prelude in pieces in here. You could use something like this. Alright, so this is basically your standard box wrench. You never ever want to use this side. You always want to use this side. What's nice about this is the nice offset, so when you're on the pan you can still move your hand. So this is a good way to go. You also got something like this, which is a ratcheting one. Alright, also a good option. And then we should have, well, yeah, this one here. So this is a flexible ratcheting one, which again ratchets but also offers the flexible head. So again, you can get underneath it and get better torque. And if you don't want to go the box wrench route, you can go the socket route. Again, you get something like this, flexible head socket, and 14mm. That's that guy right there. Alright, this is really the best way to go because it's a 6-point socket, which means that with all those flat sides of the socket, we're going to be able to get more torque on that nut. So I think this is the way I'm going to go. I'm going to grab this, I'm going to grab this, I'm going to get under the car. Alright, so in a perfect world, you wouldn't have such a dirty floor like I do. So rule number one of going underneath your car is without fail. Every time you get underneath your car, you will always forget something. In this case, it's a flashlight, so I can actually show you guys what I'm doing. So give me a minute, let me get the flashlight. Alright, so here's the oil drain bolt right here. It's pretty warm, which means that the oil is warm, which means that when it drains out, it's going to be all hot. It's always good to drain your oil when it's warm, so it's not that big of a deal. And there's also a reason why we're doing the oil draining part first and not the spark plugs, but we'll get into that later. So anyway, this is the nut I have to loosen with my 14mm socket wrench. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that guy on there and loosen it up. And there it goes. Here goes nothing. Oh, there we go. Alright, so we're back from underneath the car, and I'm just cleaning up the drain bolt. You always kind of want to look at this and make sure that it's not rounded off, that the threads look good. If your washer is not in good shape, or if it was leaking, you can change that out too. Mine was not leaking, as you guys saw. I'm going to reuse it. So I know some of you guys who are fans of the channel are probably saying, do we really need a video on how to change your oil? And the answer to that question is we absolutely need a video on how to change our oil. The reason is this channel is all about motivating people to work on their cars, even if they're not mechanics or they have very little skill at all. So the oil change is the beginner step to working on your car. So yeah, we need a video on how to change your oil. It's an important part of car ownership, and it's a great way to get to know your car and take care of it. So we got our oil drain plug cleaned up real good. This guy's ready to get reinstalled, but we're not just gonna go reinstall it right now. You know, a good oil change is one where all the oil gets out of the car. So I usually let it go for about 15-20 minutes before I actually reinstall this. But right now, I'm sure it's died down to pretty much nothing. We're gonna go back underneath the car. We're gonna go ahead and take the oil filter off. So when it comes to tools for removing your oil filter, you should not need any. It should be on there hand tight, and you should be able to remove it with your hand. Now, with that being said, sometimes over time the thing gets really hot, goes through a whole bunch of heat and cool cycles, and becomes really difficult to turn off, especially if your hand's covered in oil. So they do make things like this. This one is actually for my wife's Lexus CT200. Has specific cutouts to work with their stupid oil filter, but you can get a tool similar to this. I believe I have some. Yes, no. I have some. Here we go. So you can see here over the years I've collected a series of different sizes of these things. So one great thing about tools is they're always great to have. You never know when you're going to need them. I can't remember what kind of cars these are for, but if that doesn't fail, or if that doesn't work or fit, you can go get one of these. These things work pretty well. I've been able to remove every single filter I've ever needed to remove with a pair of these guys. Essentially, you go underneath it, you grab it, and you twist it. Come on. This plastic's super annoying. And I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. I think I'm going to need that tool after all. Alright, so we don't want to loosen it too much because I moved the oil drain pan out of the way. And oil, as you might imagine, is going to come pouring out of this thing. Oh, there we go. And there's all the oil I was telling you about. Alright guys, we're over here at the workbench, and forgive the mess, but I want to show you what I normally do before I reinstall an oil filter. So I got the old oil filter here, I got the new one here from Toyota, and one of the first things that I always do is just look at the size of them to make sure that I'm reinstalling something that's basically the same size and I'm sure that I got the right filter. So in this case, they look identical, and the next step that I normally do is I take the new filter, I tip it over on top of the old filter to get some of that old oil off the little seal that's on there and get it on my new filter. But in this case, Toyota has already done that for me. You can see that there's a gloss around that gasket and some sort of lube already on there, so I don't need to worry about it. So in this case, we just get rid of the old filter, and we're going to fill this guy halfway up with fresh oil. Alright, we got this guy roughly filled halfway, and after you get done filling this and spilling oil on the ground like I did, this guy's ready to be reinstalled. So this should be our last time underneath the car. We got our filter, we got our drain bolt plug, everything's ready to go. So keep that within an arm's reach, and then I like to go underneath the car, give it all a good wipe down so that there's no dripping oil, so that when we're finished with this job, we back the car out, it's not going to drip on the ground and us think that maybe we have a leak. Alright, everything's cleaned up. Check out how clean that is. Do you think your Toyota Tech cleans it like that? I guarantee he doesn't. And neither does the guy at Jiffy Lube. He doesn't even know how to do a good oil change. So anyway, look how pretty that is. 270,000 miles in this car. Look how dry and clean everything is. Alright, so enough about that. Let's go ahead and grab the oil filter, screw it in place, and we'll be good to go. Alright, filter's reinstalled. It's hand tight. Don't need to go bananas on it. Don't need to use that wrench or any other wrench to reinstall. Hand tight is good enough. So now I'm going to go ahead and tighten down the string plug bolt. You want to make sure that when you're tightening this, that you don't over tighten it. You don't want to strip this out. Easy way to make sure you don't strip it out is keep your hand where mine is. It's very hard to put a lot of torque on a bolt when your hand's real close to the top of the socket. So I'm tightening, and boom, I'm happy with that. Alright guys, we're about to go ahead and dump this oil in the engine, but before I do, I want to say a quick thing about oil. It doesn't matter what kind of oil you guys use. I'm using Pennzoil, and I always run Pennzoil on this car. There's a reason for it, and I'll tell you about it in a second. But use whatever is 5W30 and is a good price, and you can get locally and you like. The reason I use Pennzoil in this car is because when I had my first Scion XB back in 2006, I did a little research on this website called bobstheoilguy.com, and there was a guy on there who had a Scion XB, same year, same make, same model as I did, and he sent his used oil off for analysis, and they sent him back basically a report card on how well that oil was doing. That oil was Pennzoil 5W30, full synthetic, and it came back with fantastic results.
Can you see that? So we're good to go. Got enough oil in there. We're over the line. That's probably a better shot right there. Hope you can see that. But yeah, we're over the line. We're good to go.
Alright, just really one more thing to do here. Reinstall our oil filler cap. Get a hand tight, and we're good. So now we're going to go inside and reset the computer so that it'll remind us 5,000 miles from now to go ahead and change our oil again. Alright, the way that we go ahead and reset the computer is we got our key in our ignition, we turn it on, so you want to make sure that your trip odometer is not on trip A or trip B. So you can see here that I'm on the actual odometer, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. Lights are off, and I'm going to turn this on. Hold this down. See those dashes? They start a countdown, and when they go all the way down, all zeros, we're good to go. So last thing we're going to do is start it up and check for leaks. Alright, so that wasn't so bad. So I got the oil changed, things are running great. So now we're going to go ahead and remove this plastic cover so we can really get to those spark plugs. You're going to need a 10mm wrench, something like this will do, and take all these little guys off of here. Okay, so I went ahead and removed those 4 10mm bolts, and now we actually get to see the actual valve cover. And you can see here that we have some what is this, coil-on injection? Is that what these things are called? Comment below if I got that wrong, but basically they're a hopped up spark plug wire. We got a couple 10mm bolts here that we have to remove, and then these guys will pull right out. Alright, 10mm bolts are removed. Now we're going to go ahead and pull these out one by one. You're going to want to keep them in order. You don't want to mix them up. They're taped off a certain way so that they're kind of hard to screw up. You really have to try really hard to do it, but in this case, we want to make sure that we got them laid out so that we can reinstall them the exact same way. So now with those removed, you can actually look down in there and see our spark plugs. There might not be enough light, but believe me, they're down there. So let's get them out. Alright, so before we go ahead and pull these spark plugs out, I'm going to go over a couple tools that you're going to need. You're going to need a socket. Doesn't have to be a flexible head one like this, but you're going to need a socket with some extensions. And most importantly, you're going to need one of these sockets here. So what this guy has inside of it is a little rubber booty, and what it does is when you put it down in the hole and you loosen up the spark plug, it allows you to remove the spark plug all in one. The little rubber booty attaches to the ceramic part of the plug, allowing it to kind of stick, and I'll show you that when I pull it out. But before we go and do that, I have to put a disclaimer out there. You want to make sure you're doing this with a pretty cold engine. So this engine hasn't run for about an hour and a half now. Since we've been kind of moving it around a little bit here and there, it really hasn't gotten all that hot. But you don't want to remove spark plugs on a hot engine, because if you got an engine like this and many other engines, they're aluminum. What happens when aluminum gets hot, it expands, and that plug can kind of get wedged in there as that aluminum expands. So you want to make sure that the engine's pretty cool so the spark plug has a chance to come out easily and not get stuck inside. Come on. There we go. Here's what a used one looks like. About 30,000 miles on it. and here is what a new one looks like. So pretty big difference. We're gonna go ahead and check the gap on these and then go ahead and reinstall just like we removed them. So NGK pre-gaps all their spark plugs. This should be gapped to like 1032nd or whatever the number is. 0.032 is what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and check the gap, which is 0.032, which is exactly what we want. So another thing I like to do before I reinstall spark plug is put some anti-seize on there. Now you don't have to do this with NGK plugs. They say it's not necessary, but it doesn't hurt either. You just need a little bit on there. That's all we need, and as we screw that in, that'll work its way into the threads, and then we'll never have to worry about that not coming out. And once it's tight by hand, pull it out, and we're good. On to the next. Alright, so we got all 4 plugs installed, and now we're going to go ahead and tighten them. Not a lot of pressure at all. Nice and easy. Good. There you have it, guys. Put back together, running smooth. Want to start it up already. Sounds great. You know, we're not expecting any kind of performance changes out of what we did. This is just maintenance. So I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. I hope you learned something today about your Scion XB. I hope it wasn't too boring for people who've done this job already. If I've missed something, please put it in the comments. I'd love to argue with you about what it is that I did not do. But anyway, guys, I hope you learned that it's fun to work on your car. I hope that came through in the video, that I had a good time doing this despite the fact that it took me around 2 hours, and most of that was because I was filming. But you know, working on your car is a lot of fun and is very rewarding. So if you've never done it before, go ahead and get yourself some tools at Home Depot or Sears or Lowe's, and you know, take some stuff apart on your car. Change your oil, change your spark plugs, and enjoy it. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna go. Thanks for watching. See you next time.